Hey there, it's Karenology. This level of audacity is off the charts. You have to hear this. It was already dark when I pulled into my street, and I noticed something was off the moment I turned the corner. There were lights on inside my house, but not the kind I'd left. Brighter, colder. LED strips where my old warm bulbs used to be. A strange car sat in the driveway. At first, I thought maybe my daughter had come to check on the place while I was away helping my brother patch up that rotten barn of his in Wyoming. But then I saw the gate. The chain link gate I welded shut myself 10 years ago. Someone had cut through it clean and slapped a brand new padlock on the front. I parked across the street and stared for a moment, the engine ticking in the quiet. My home, my land, 40 years of it, and now it looked like a rental unit on a bad listing site. A couple of shadows moved behind the living room window. One of them, blonde hair, big frame, floral blouse, turned toward me. Karen. Of course. She stepped outside like she owned the place. Frank, she said, smiling like a realtor. You weren't supposed to be back until Friday. Karen, I said slowly. Why is there a car in my driveway? And why is there a lock on my gate that ain't mine? She clasped her hands together like a school teacher, explaining detention. Oh, Frank, it's all very simple. While you were gone, the Homeowner Association had a meeting. You've been behind on dues. 3 years, actually. That violates community bylaws. I cheat. You know damn well I opted out of the association in 2017. My property's not under your jurisdiction. That's where you're mistaken, she said sweetly. You never signed the updated easement form, so technically... Get off my property, I said, stepping out of the truck. I wasn't yelling. Not yet. But my voice had that cold edge that used to make criminals sit down in the back of my cruiser without a word. Behind her, 2 people I didn't recognize came out with a box of my tools. A younger couple. The guy looked barely 30. The girl glued to her phone. Frank, meet Colby and Lindsay, Karen said, as if this was some Sunday brunch. They're the new owners. I didn't remember walking up the path. 1 second, I was by the truck. The next, I was in front of the porch. I told the couple to put my things down. The man looked to Karen, unsure. She gave a slight shake of her head. I called the police. Of course I did. That's what you do when someone breaks into your house and starts hauling your life away. Officer Jacobs arrived 10 minutes later. Young, polite, and completely out of his depth. Karen handed him a stack of papers in a manila folder. HOA bylaws. Meeting minutes. A notice of default. A sales agreement. My name on documents I'd never seen before. It looks legit, Jacob said after skimming the pages. If you have a dispute, sir, I suggest filing a civil claim. In the meantime, please don't enter the premises until it's resolved. Archie, you telling me I can't walk into my own damn house? I'm telling you not to make this harder than it already is, he said gently. I saw pity in his eyes. I slept in my truck that night. Couldn't bear to check into a motel. It felt too much like giving up. The next morning, I went to the county clerk's office. My hands shook as I filled out the request for property records. They printed out the deed. It still had my name on it. That gave me a sliver of hope. I took it to an old friend of mine, Scott Benson. We used to coach Little League together, back when both of us still had color in our hair. He'd gone into investigative reporting, retired now, but still had the fire in him. He read the papers, grunted, and muttered something about Karen always being trouble. You know what this smells like? He said, holding up the fake-looking HOA meeting minutes. A power grab. But you're not the first, I'd bet. Scott was right. He dug into county records, interviewed folks on the block, found 3 other homeowners who'd mysteriously lost their places in the past 2 years. All of them elderly. All of them with properties bordering the undeveloped side of the neighborhood. Karen, it turned out, had dreams of selling a whole block to a development group. My house was the last piece, and I was the last man in the way. The next night, someone slashed my truck's tires. I didn't sleep again after that. Not out of fear, out of something else, something colder, something that had started to burn in my gut. I wasn't just going to get my house back. I was going to burn their whole little scheme to the ground. Back in the day, when I wore a badge and drove a cruiser, we used to say there's no such thing as a clean con. Only the cons you haven't looked at close enough. And this wasn't just a con. This was something else. Something colder. Something designed not just to steal, but to humiliate. Scott and I met up in the back booth of Eddie's Diner. The same spot we used to take shifts eating pie when we worked security during the county fair. He had a small notebook, a thumb drive, and a tired look in his eyes. "You were right," he said, without preamble. "There's a pattern. Karen's behind every one of the suspicious property sales in the last 4 years. All of them involved elderly owners. And, in every case, the Homeowner Association filed paperwork claiming abandonment while the owner was out for medical leave, family visits, you name it. He passed me copies of the property transfers. Names I knew. Good people. One had passed last spring. I'd been at the funeral. Another, a retired mailman named Richie, was now living with his daughter 3 counties over, too shaken to fight. "She's preying on folks who don't have the strength to push back," I muttered. She thought I'd be one of them. The thumb drive contained a recording, audio, from an anonymous employee who claimed Karen was negotiating a private deal with a regional builder to sell off a whole string of properties as a bundle. "And guess who sits on the zoning review board?" Scott said. "Her cousin, and the real estate agent for these sales. Her old college roommate. It wasn't just theft, it was infrastructure. A machine. And I had stepped right into the gears. That night, I got a call from my daughter, Laura. Her voice was strained. "Dad, are you okay?" "Someone from the Homeowner Association came to my school today. They told the principal you've been acting unstable, that you made threats." My heart dropped. Laura was a teacher, 2nd grade. She loved those kids. This was Karen's way of striking at me through her. "You didn't believe them, did you?" I asked. "Of course not," she snapped. "But now I'm under investigation. It's ridiculous." I didn't sleep that night. Again. I sat in my truck in the motel lot, watching the fog roll across the windshield. Everything I built was under siege. And not just the house. My name, my family, my dignity. Karen wasn't trying to win. She was trying to erase me. The next morning, I visited a neighbor I hadn't spoken to in years. Mr. Quinn. Korean War vet, hard of hearing, mean as a rattlesnake if you got on his bad side. But he had one of those old security camera rigs that recorded everything, rain or shine. "You still got that footage from last month?" I asked. He squinted at me, ran a hand through his thin white hair, and said, "You mean when Karen brought them suits around your yard?" I nodded. "I need it." Took some sweet talking and an offer to fix the gutters on his shed. But by sunset, I had the drive in my pocket. The footage was gold. Karen walking the property with a clipboard, pointing out features like she was giving a tour. A man in a beige suit nodded along. Another opened the gate and walked the perimeter like he was already measuring it. I sent the video to Scott. He posted it online anonymously. Within hours, comments started pouring in. People recognized the men in the video. Zoning officials, realtors, contractors. Not one of them had any legal reason to be on my land. The local news picked up the story next. Retired officer claims Homeowner Association. Seized home without consent. They showed stills from the footage, played snippets of Karen smiling in old HOA meetings. The comments section lit up, and not in her favor. That night, someone keyed the words "liar" into the hood of my truck. I didn't bother reporting it. That would have felt like asking the wolves for help finding your missing sheep. The motel manager gave me a wary look when I paid for the next week in advance. I saw it in his eyes. I was becoming a story people whispered about. The man who lost his house, who couldn't fight back, who was getting eaten alive by the system. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The following afternoon, I stood outside the Homeowner Association office. A soulless beige building, squeezed between a pharmacy and a dentist. I waited until Karen came out, high heels clicking like a metronome of smugness. I didn't speak, just handed her a copy of the footage. Neatly printed stills on paper. Her face froze. "You think you're clever?" she hissed. I looked her square in the eyes. "No, ma'am. I think I'm angry. And you just gave me a reason to do something about it." Her smile faltered. I walked away without waiting for a reply. Because I already had a plan. And if I pulled it off right, I wouldn't just get my house back. I'd make sure nobody like her could ever do this again. The day after I confronted Karen outside that soulless HOA office, I found an envelope taped to my motel door. No return address. Inside, a cease and desist letter, supposedly from the Homeowner Association's legal team, full of big words and hollow threats. I read it 3 times, then tore it in half. If they wanted me to be scared, they'd have to try harder. Scott called later that morning. "You've stirred up the hornet's nest," he said, "and people are watching. The footage is spreading. Some legal blogs picked it up. Even the state housing forums reposted it." I drove to the edge of town to meet with a woman named Greta Langley. She used to be the HOA's bookkeeper before she resigned, quietly, without fanfare, a few months back. She agreed to meet only if we left our phones behind. We sat in the back of her yard. Chickens pecking around us. The fence creaking in the breeze. "I was told to retroactively create fee logs," she said flatly. "Fake back dues for certain homeowners. I kept copies." Greta handed me a folder. Neat typewritten pages, marked with red pen. My name was in there. So were others. Karen had been manufacturing debt on properties she wanted out of her way. Greta said she quit the moment she realized the scale of it and the danger. "I know I should have come forward sooner," she said, "but I was scared." Karen has friends in city records, people who owe her favors. I thanked her and promised I'd keep her name out of it. But the folder was dynamite. Combined with the footage, the testimonies, and Scott's reporting, we now had a bomb ticking under Karen's empire. That evening, Laura stopped by the motel. She'd taken a personal day from school. Her eyes were red. "They're putting me on administrative leave," she said, "pending review." I swallowed hard. I had spent my life fighting men with knives, meth labs, and domestic standoffs, but seeing my daughter hurt? That cut deeper. "I'm sorry, baby," I said. "You shouldn't be paying for my war." She shook her head. "No, Dad. I'm proud of you. I'm scared of what they'll do next." What they did next came the following morning. Karen filed for a restraining order, claimed I was harassing her, threatening her safety, stalking her home. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. If granted, I wouldn't be allowed within 100 yards of her or my own property. But I had something she didn't: truth, and a man named Marvin Goldstein. Marvin was a retired real estate lawyer who volunteered at the county senior center. He was sharp, ruthless, and bored. Dangerous traits in a man with time on his hands. When I brought him the folder Greta gave me, his eyes lit up like a prosecutor with fresh meat. "So, this is enough for a criminal referral," he said. "But you'll need to bring it into court carefully. Don't tip your hand too early." Marvin agreed to represent me, pro bono. Said it was the most interesting thing he'd touched in 5 years. I figured he just hated bullies. At the hearing, Karen showed up in a lavender blouse and crocodile tears. Claimed I'd parked outside her home and yelled threats. I sat calmly. Marvin shredded her statement piece by piece, pointing out inconsistencies, lack of dates, no supporting witnesses. Then we submitted the video of her on my property before the sale, walking with developers. We showed the fake billing logs, the timing, the conflicts of interest. The judge didn't make a ruling that day. Said she needed to review everything. Karen walked out with her head high, but her hands shook. I noticed. That night, a man tried to break into Scott's garage. He caught him on camera. Black hoodie, license plate covered. The police report went nowhere, but we knew. It was a message. Back off. Or else. We didn't back off. Instead, we expanded. Scott wrote a full exposé for the state news blog. It included Greta's evidence, redacted, Laura's story, the zoning board connections. It went viral within a day. People were furious. Former HOA members came out of the woodwork. Some admitted they'd voted under pressure. Others confessed they didn't even know Karen had faked meeting quorums. It felt like standing on a cliff edge during a storm. One wrong step and we'd go over. But behind us, people were starting to gather. Watching, waiting, angry. Karen tried one more tactic. She invited me to meet at a cafe, alone. I agreed. She was waiting with sunglasses and that same smug smile. "We don't have to burn everything down, Frank," she said. "Walk away. I'll make sure your daughter gets her job back. Maybe even a check for your troubles." I looked at her for a long time. "Do you remember when you moved into the neighborhood?" I asked. "You gave my wife a pie." "Peach cobbler, store-bought," but she smiled and said it was the thought that counted. "We had hopes for you." Karen didn't speak. I'm not for sale," I said, "and neither is justice." Then I left. Because the real fire was just starting to catch. The week that followed was unlike any I'd lived through. Every morning felt like walking onto a battlefield, with nothing but stubbornness and old instincts to protect me. But I wasn't alone anymore. Marvin worked the legal angles with the precision of a surgeon. Scott coordinated with a local news station to prepare a televised segment. And Laura, even on suspension, stayed close, keeping me grounded when the rage started to rise too high. The news segment aired on a Thursday night. It opened with the footage from Quinn's camera. Karen trespassing on my property, giving her silent tour to developers. Then came interviews. Greta, in shadow, confirming the falsified financials. A former HOA member, Mrs. Tran, trembling as she admitted she'd been coerced into signing off on false meeting notes. And me, standing in front of the fence I welded myself decades ago, saying plainly, "This isn't about me losing a house. This is about whether people like Karen get to decide that the rules don't apply to them." The story exploded. Emails flooded the station. Calls came into the courthouse. A petition launched by one of Laura's students' parents gained over 10,000 signatures in 3 days, demanding a full investigation of the Homeowner Association board. Karen vanished from public view. Her smiling HOA photos were scrubbed from the official website. The association's phone lines went dark. No one returned calls. Rumors spread. Resignations, internal collapse, even threats exchanged between board members. That Sunday, I was invited to a town hall. Not an official one. This was neighbors, ordinary folks. Meeting in the church basement where we used to hold community potlucks. Over 60 people showed up. Some angry, some frightened, some ashamed. They spoke about fines they didn't understand, threats they didn't report, and that quiet dread that if they pushed back, they'd lose everything. I stood up and told them what I'd told the judge. Fear is how these people win. It's how they always win. But we know better. We've lived longer. We've buried friends and raised kids and survived worse than paperwork and fraud. If we stand together, they can't keep us scared. I'll never forget the sound that followed. Not clapping, just silence. Heavy, thoughtful silence. Then one voice, old Mr. Dalton, muttering, "He's right." And then the tide turned. The next day, Greta delivered a second batch of files to Marvin. This time, they detailed side deals, payments made to a local contractor, invoices for work that was never done, and a mysterious shell company tied to Karen's brother-in-law. It was more than fraud. It was embezzlement. And now it was provable. Marvin submitted a formal complaint to the state attorney's office. At the same time, we filed a civil suit for restitution, property rights violation, and defamation. That's when the subpoenas started flying. Karen's cousin on the zoning board was served first. Then her real estate agent friend. Then 2 sitting members of the HOA board. One of them flipped immediately, offering a sworn affidavit in exchange for leniency. It was damning. According to his testimony, Karen had held private meetings for years, locking others out, threatening to pull strings with the county to destroy lives if people didn't comply. The state attorney called a press conference. An active investigation is now underway regarding misconduct and potential criminal activity involving certain homeowner association officials within this jurisdiction. I watched it from my motel room. Laura sat beside me, her hand on mine. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Then came the fire, literally. At 3 a.m, someone tossed a lit Molotov cocktail into Scott's front porch. By some miracle, he woke up to let his dog out and caught the flames early. The fire department got there in time. No one was hurt. But the message was clear. The enemy was desperate. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. The sheriff's office launched an arson investigation, but nobody expected much. I knew better. I started watching my back. Kept a tire iron behind the seat again. Checked my mirrors. It felt like the old days. Dealing with meth heads in trailer parks and crooked parole officers who thought they were kings of the hill. And yet, the support didn't stop. A group of retired firefighters offered to patrol neighborhoods at night. Someone paid for new security cameras around Laura's house. The community that Karen had ruled by fear was slowly turning into something else, something stronger. The judge set a date for the full property hearing. Marvin prepared our case like he was going into a knife fight. "She'll try one more stunt," he warned. "Count on it." He was right. 2 days before the hearing, Karen's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss all claims. They claimed the conflict had been resolved when I was generously compensated through a non-existent settlement. They even attached forged documents, signatures that weren't mine. Marvin laughed when he saw it. "That's not just dirty, it's stupid." He filed a counter motion so fast, the courthouse clerk said she'd never seen paper move that quickly. Then, just as the sun was setting, we received an anonymous tip through Scott's blog contact form. A scanned document, a scanned check, and a list of property IDs. Every address Karen had taken in the last 5 years, along with the offshore account numbers used to launder the money. We didn't know who sent it, but we knew what to do with it. And we knew the hearing would be anything but routine. The morning of the hearing, I wore my old deputy's tie. Not out of nostalgia, out of defiance. The knot was a little crooked, hands not as steady as they used to be, but the message was clear. I came to fight with dignity. Marvin met me outside the courthouse, briefcase in one hand, coffee in the other, looking like a wolf in corduroy. "Ready to finish this?" he asked. I was ready the day they changed the locks, I said. The courtroom was packed. Locals, reporters, even folks I hadn't seen in years. Laura sat behind me. Scott, with his arm in a sling from a post-fire mishap, nodded as I passed. Karen sat across the aisle, flanked by her legal team. No sunglasses today. No smirk either. The judge, a sharp, no-nonsense woman, with a reputation for smelling lies before they landed, called the session to order. Marvin laid out everything. The fraudulent billing, the manufactured abandonment claims, the backdoor deals, the forged settlement. Piece by piece, with photos, affidavits, audio, and video. Karen's team tried to object at every turn, but the evidence was stacked like bricks. Then came the final blow. Marvin handed the judge the anonymous documents, the offshore transfers, The laundering trail. The check scan. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is the prosecution aware of this? Yes, Your Honor, Marvin said calmly. I delivered a copy this morning. I believe a warrant is being drafted. Karen's face finally cracked. A flicker of panic. The same look I saw years ago on a bank robber when he realized the vault was empty and the door was locked from the outside. The judge ruled in our favor. Not just that, she ordered the immediate return of my property, sanctions against Karen, reversal of every fraudulent sale pending investigation. She recommended criminal prosecution. I didn't smile. Not then. Too tired. Too much had been taken. But I nodded, slow and sure. Because justice isn't loud. It's steady. Like a train that finally shows up after years of waiting. When I returned to the house that evening, Laura was already inside, wiping down counters that hadn't seen a cloth in weeks. She'd brought pie. Not peach cobbler. Real apple. The kind my wife used to bake. Welcome home, she said. The next few weeks were a blur of reconstruction. Physically, legally, emotionally. We fixed the fence, replaced windows. I rehung the flag. The community held a barbecue, old-fashioned, with paper plates and lemonade in coolers. Folks came up and thanked me. Some just hugged me. Others apologized for staying silent too long. I told them all the same thing. It's never too late to do the right thing. Karen was arrested 2 weeks later. They caught her trying to withdraw money from one of the flagged accounts. Her mugshot made the rounds. No smile this time. The Homeowner Association board was dissolved. A temporary council was formed. Volunteers, mostly. Retirees, teachers, veterans, good people. They asked me to join. I declined. I already fought my war, I said. I'll be the guy who waters the azaleas. But sometimes I'd find flyers in my mailbox, asking for advice. Legal questions, boundary disputes. I always answered, because what happened to me wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. About the right to feel safe in your own home. One evening, sitting on my porch in that creaky chair, I watched the sun dip below the tree line. The air smelled like cut grass and charcoal. My dog snored beside me. Laura laughed with the neighbors across the fence, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something bad to happen. I just felt home. And that, my friend, is worth fighting for.